In 2005, Avatar The Last Airbender was released on Nickelodeon, and it changed animation history forever. If you went up to someone on the street today and asked them who Zuko, Toph, Katara, or Aang were, you'd probably get a number of variations on the same thing. The point being, the show is iconic. It's been known as probably on a par, if not better than the original Star Wars trilogy. And the question we're going to try and answer in this story arc through story arc retrospective, is The Last Airbender as good as we remember? Yes it is. No, that wouldn't really be a video worth watching now, would it? We begin the show with Sokka and Katara hunting for fish. Through this one interaction, we get introduced to the lack of grown-ups in the tribe, Sokka and Katara's relationship to one another, and the inciting incident, and the idea of bending as a whole, all within 5 minutes and 30 seconds. The next scene introduces the main antagonists of the series, Prince Zuko and Uncle Iroh. This scene is the same as the previous introduction. It sets up both of their motivations for the series to come, with Zuko being hot-headed and laser-focused on his goal to capture the Avatar, and Iroh's goal is to impart wisdom and a more laid-back attitude onto Zuko, so he can enjoy more of life instead of just constantly hunting after his goal.
Next we get the introduction to Aang. This begins with him in a rather dramatic position, and then pulls a 180 and shows Aang as a simple, fun-loving kid who has even less of a clue than Katara or Sokka. This also sets up his relationship with the two. Over the rest of the episode, Katara teaches Aang about the Fire Nation's attacks and the massacre of her people. Aang brings life and fun into the village that for so long has just been focused on getting through the day. We can also see Sokka's need to lead and become a father figure to others, the man of the tribe. We see more of Zuko's training and learning about how bending works from his uncle, and how he is fueled by his anger and hate in his firebending. As this goes on, Aang and Katara explore an abandoned Fire Nation ship and trigger a booby trap that alerts Zuko to the Avatar's location. The next episode kicks off with Aang being banished from the village. Katara offers to go with him, and Aang refuses as he doesn't want to come between her and her family. This shows him as noble despite his goofy nature. He leaves, and at that moment the Fire Nation comes to shore. Aang rushes back as Sokka attempts to fend off the ship single-handed. Zuko threatens the crowd of women and children, and at that moment, Aang returns to defend them. After a brief fight, he leaves Zuko to spare the Water Tribe. Katara and Sokka make chase behind them, and an exciting escape ensues. The episode ends with the promise of what the show will be about from this point forward.
The way the show handles the exposition is actually pretty smart. They throw out large chunks of information at a time, and you don't notice it too much as they layer them under humor and sight gag. Likewise, the setup is also done through humor, which in a way distracts you in the process. For example, there are some nice moments in the second episode, like the scene where Sokka attempts to take on the Fire Nation all by himself. This is played for laughs, but also shows courage and willingness to defend his tribe even when the odds are against him. Another scene with Katara shows that while mature in some ways, she's still just a kid, shown by her penguin sledding with Aang. Another note is the layer of mystery added through the first episode. A question that is left burning on everyone's mind. What happened to Aang? Well, as it turns out, shown in the second episode, he ran away in fear of becoming the Avatar over 100 years ago, and hasn't mastered any of the other elements yet. Thus, the season and the show as a whole is set up.
According to legend, you need to first master water, then earth, then fire, right? That's what the monks told me. Well, if we go to the North Pole, you can master waterbending. We can learn it together. And Sokka?
It's no secret that the show was based off of numerous anime sources. It doesn't really look like any other kids show on the network from that time either. Some of this is in part due to the more realistic colour scheme. While the colours aren't dark and gritty and all that imagery would conjure up, they don't look like anything like, say, Steven Universe levels of bad, where the colours are so bright and ugly that it makes you want to pour bleach into your eyeballs. In short, it looks aesthetically pleasing. It has a nice balance between bright, vibrant colours and more cold tones that you might see in a painted work. The character designs also give us good insight into the characters as well, and they are clearly inspired by Asian cultures from all over the world.
On that subject, obviously the major cultures in the world of Avatar are directly based, culturally and narratively, off of the real-world nations, cultures, and historical and current interactions between those cultures. The Fire Nation makes an easy allegory for Imperial Japan, what with their relentless drive toward industrialization and mission to conquer and civilize the surrounding cultures. This is reflected in the dress, architecture, vehicles, and equipment of the Fire Nation. This steampunk blend of traditional styles and earlier industrialism reflected by their warships resembling the kind of ironclads used by the Meiji-era Imperial Navy. The Southern Water Tribe has heavy Inuit influences and the air nomads to Tibet and Vajrayana Buddhism in dress and especially religious structure, as well as what seems to be a statement about the alleged ongoing persecution of Tibetans and especially Tibetan Buddhists by the Chinese government, but we will see more of that throughout the show.
I would say the show holds up remarkably well, with good setup and payoff, and a sense of fun to keep you engaged, as well as an interesting threat. Perhaps the show was a tad rushed in some areas though. Some scenes went by in a blink of an eye. Not only this, but the animation itself, while not bad, isn't nearly as good as it would become. Everything in these first 2 episodes can feel slightly off in a way, mainly due to this being the period in the production process when the actors, animators, writers, and directors are all getting into their grooves. As they go along, you can watch it get slightly better as they find what they're looking for. It's often that the midpoint in anything is usually the best. This is where everyone is at their peak.
In conclusion, these first 2 episodes, if a little rushed at points, are a masterclass in exactly how to set up an ongoing television series. Personally, I think this should be taught up there with Breaking Bad and how to make a successful pilot, and the audience is all ages and both sexes, and the start definitely makes you want to see more of the show. It's well done, and overall, it holds up.